Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I've been getting a suspicious amount of wins lately, and so I kind of looked at them and tried to pick apart a couple tips I could pass on to you guys. If you guys have heard these already, great. It's a good reminder so you would take them into the next game, and if not, then perfect. Now you got something new to try, so let's get into it. My first tip for you is slow down on the initial engagements. Notice how I'm using my head glitch to get these guys in a perfect third-party scenario. Now, this was designed because we landed outside and worked our way in, and we just cleaned up the rest of the squad. But the idea is having an idea on your approach, not just rushing right in and then ending up being sandwiched yourself. Oftentimes, people will rotate right in front of you, giving you prime opportunities to down them, eliminate them, whatever, without even having to, try that hard. Remember too that when you do these third parties, the two people that are fighting or about to fight in this case are looking at each other. They're not looking around, and if they're actively fighting, they're probably not hearing very well. And so even if you just walk up on these guys, you often can get a lot closer than you think. The only reason they knew we were here is because I shot at them, which was dumb. So then we ash port away, which is great, but then they all go through the ash portal, which is so stupid. And this tells me they didn't think about their initial engagement. They saw, hey, there's people out in the open, let's go hard push them. But this is the risk you run whenever you don't think about your approach. So that's going to get you in the right spots. Now we got to be able to hit the guys. So how do we work on that? My tip for you is work on your tracking. Flick shots are nice and important and fancy, but realistically, over 80% of the time, you're going to be using a tracking motion on your targets, even if you're using a single shot point shooting type gun. So the best ways to improve this is either go into the range, lower your sensitivity, and force yourself to do it, or you can make yourself do it mentally. So mentally, you should be able to slow down your aim just a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to be calm about this. I'm just going to purposely not move as fast as I want to move. Because typically we take and get a little adrenaline rush whenever we get into these fights and we overwhelm our system. When really, if you've been practicing in the range, you should be confident that you can hit your shots. I mean, it really isn't that hard if you can use recoil smoothing and you pull down just a little bit. It is very easy to shoot in this game. Most of the error comes from the human. That's why I'm saying mentally slow down a little bit. If you can't do that, kick down your sensitivity a little bit and practice your tracking. Even with your wingman and PKs, if you can keep that middle dot on your target, even hip firing, you're going to hit way more of your shots. There's a little bit of play in there, but I mean, that's just the nature of the game. You can't prevent hip fire spread, but you can prevent human involved badness. Take the human badness out of it. That's why I play Ash, by the way. Okay, you're getting in the right spot, you're getting shots on target, now we're getting somewhere, right? Now let's talk about movement. When I talk about movement today, I'm talking about just basic legend movement. Every legend can do this. So no horizon lifts, no grapples, nothing like that. Those are all bonuses. All you need to know for movement is a good strafe pattern, some left, right, kind of randomize it, throw crouches in there. As you get better, you can learn to read their shooting pattern of the person shooting at you and kind of work around that. And being able to holster your weapon, unholster it fluently. Wall bounces are a plus, but not a necessary, and those are the only things you really need to know. Everything else is gravy, everything else will help, but it's not like, hey, if you master this movement, you're going to win all your fights. No, you really need your aim and your game sense first. This next one's kind of 2-in-1, and I'll explain why, but the main point is make sure you're shooting the person. Be comfortable with taking a few rounds and dishing out more damage than they are, right? So that's where working on your strafe pattern and throwing in those crouches will be really beneficial. Where I see people are very uncomfortable with this is when they're out in the open, when they're not near cover. So that's more of a cover issue. Make sure that you're near cover or using cover appropriately so that you do feel comfortable with maybe taking that extra quarter second of a peek so you can get 2 more rounds on the person. The big benefit to this is if you're putting rounds on them, they're going to be less likely to push. And that gives you way more advantage. It gives your buddies time to flank and get a new angle. It opens up a world of opportunity for you. Whereas if you shoot, turn around and try and go back to cover, that's a big flag, at least on my end of things now. I'm going to want to push you to try and isolate this into a more advantageous opportunity for my team. So now we just got to finish out the fight, close this thing off. I like the phrase, no free damage. I learned that from Save Griffin. He's a predator, multi-predator, really good dude. I took a coaching class from him. I'd recommend it for anybody. But anyway, no free damage. He is good enough that he can just freaking push anything and have a really good chance of winning. Very solid guy. but he knows how to use cover, right? So if you do, and my take on this is if you do over like 100 damage on somebody, you should look at how to push that. You might not be able to. They might be too far, teammates might be too close, but you should have some sort of way to keep that pressure on the person, even if it's just with a grenade, or why I like Ashe, because you can use her snare just to make them a little bit worried. If you can close that distance, close it, finish that person off, retreat back right away. I don't care. If somebody's going to go for that res, now you're in a 3v1 situation because that person resing can't fire while their, head is down. And that's really a matter of just learning how to pick apart a team. A little bit too big of a topic here, but just as the last tip to close out the fight, minimize the damage they can recover. No free damage. Alright, I've yammered on long enough. I've given you some tips. Hopefully the gameplay you've seen has inspired you to go play. Go try it out. Lower that sensitivity. Be confident in your aim. Crush them. And as long as you're not in my lobby, go win.